You're feeling good? Everybody glad this is what you did on your Tuesday?
Yes.
We're glad that this is what you did on your Tuesday. When I know I'm missing you up, you're welcome.
Keep going.
When Libba asked me to be a part of this, I honestly, what happened first is a story from my life came flashing back to my mind. And what I think it is a perfect highlight of how important stories are. If you think about the history of us as a society, the history of us as a species, for centuries all we had was stories. It's how we remembered what happened to the people that came before us. It's how we taught the people that were coming after us. It's how we entertained the people that we spent the same time with on this planet. It didn't have reality TV shows. It was just sitting around a campfire talking about your reality from that week and what had happened in the village. And I think we can forget how important stories are. And I think I rediscovered a story about my father that is the prime example of why stories are important. So as many stories do, this started many, many centuries ago in a time we like to call the early 2000s. I have a cousin, her name is Stephanie. Stephanie has an older brother who also happens to be my cousin. His name is Thomas. And Thomas was graduating high school, and they were throwing a big party at their family house. And the central point of the party was a bonfire. And they got the bonfire all built. They doused the sucker in gasoline, struck a match, and threw it on. Now, what nobody could have expected was that when they threw the match would light the fumes from the gasoline on the fire. And at the exact same time, a gust of wind would come through and grab that flaming fume and just throw it all over Stephanie. Thomas reacted about as well as anybody can be expected to in the situation. He knocked his sister to the ground. He got the fire put out, but she experienced second and third degree burns over 90% of her body. And things started moving very quickly at that point. Stephanie was rushed to the local hospital and then airlifted to Cincinnati, Ohio, because the top pediatric burn hospital in the country is located in Cincinnati, Ohio. My dad at that point became somewhat of a chauffeur. So he would spend his week with us doing his job, taking care of his family, and then on Friday nights he'd load up his truck, he'd go pick up whatever parent had been with Thomas for the week. He would drive them to Cincinnati, stay for the weekend, and then bring the other parent back home for a little bit of a break and to take care of Thomas. And our story happens on one of those trips. My dad was going outside of the hospital to get a breath of fresh air, and by that, of course, I mean to have a cigarette. And as he's leaving, there's some sort of commotion coming into the hospital, so he just, to get out of the way, steps into the closest hospital room. There's a hospital bed there, because they're usually in hospital rooms. And there's like a 10 or 12-year-old boy laying in this hospital bed in this burn center. His parents are in the back corner, eating dinner at a table. They give a confused look to the bald mustached man that has just entered their room for no reason. And Dad kind of pointed over his shoulder at whatever was happening outside. And they kind of nodded and went back to their dinner. And my dad, as he would, just leans up against the wall near the head of the bed. And he's looking at the television. And the little boy's watching a cartoon, something with a dog. And if you've ever seen a cartoon with a dog in it, they're ridiculous. Yeah? So something's happening, I don't know. Picture Scooby-Doo eating a sandwich. Picture Scooby-Doo running on water. Picture something that Scooby would do. And my dad's just laying there. And he doesn't look at the little boy, he doesn't look at anybody, he just goes, I have a dog. His name's James Dean. And that is where the truth ends. But it is not where my father stopped, because that was not something that held him back. The truth. I have a dog, his name is James Dean. He's a spy. He's fluent in 13 languages, including cat, even speaks a little Siamese. He's a licensed submarine pilot. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, and he proceeds to spend the next 5 minutes lying to this small child about his dog. The kid never grins, he never laughs, nothing. The parents are kind of entertained in the corner, but they're too focused on their meal. And Dad goes on and on and on about this dog, and then at some point, he turns to the little boy, and he says, do you have a dog? And the kid lets out a very light, yeah. And Dad goes, tell me about your dog. And the kid starts telling him what's his dog's name, where he got his dog, what they like to do together. And my dad noted that as this is happening, First, the parents stop eating, and then they stand up. And by the time the kid's done talking, they're standing on the other side of the bed. Well, when he gets done talking about his dog, my dad says, well, what's your name? And it just so happened that the little boy's name was Michael. And my dad's name was Michael. And his favorite joke was to find out that somebody he was talking to was named Michael. And then he looks at this 12-year-old boy and he goes, your name's Michael. My name's Michael. Wait a minute. What do you call your mom? And the little boy looks at him super confused and he goes, Mama. And my father looks at the little boy and goes, I call my mom Mama. We must be twins. At which point the little boy finally let out a laugh. And the parents laughed and everybody was having a great time. And Dad talked for a little bit longer and then he went on outside for his air. And he'd been standing there for a few minutes when he heard, you know, those like automatic caution doors that make a Star Trek spaceship sound. Heard the doors open and then he heard running. And he got barely turned around enough to just be tackled in a hug by some human form that was sobbing. He was very confused until he saw the little boy's dad also come out the door, also crying, and figured that that must be the mom that was currently wrapping him in a hug. And that was when he found out. This family had been in the hospital for a week and a half. And in that week and a half, their 10-year-old child had not made a sound. Through skin grafts, through everything that goes with stretching the skin around a skin graft that makes full-grown people who have experienced burns scream at the top of their lungs, this kid never opened his mouth. Until a crazy man came in and started lying to him about a dog. After my dad left, they kept the little boy talking, and that's how they were able to find out that a week and a half prior, he had found fireworks in the garage. And he wanted to light them, but he didn't want to bother his mom and dad. So he went into their dining room and he got a chair, dragged it into the kitchen, got on the chair, got on the counter, got on top of the refrigerator because he knew that's where they kept the matches. And then he went outside and he lit the fireworks, and that is what had wound him up in the burn center. And he had been so terrified of getting in trouble that he had decided his best bet was to not make a sound. And so I think the best thing that could come out of tonight is for us all to leave remembering how important it is to share stories. Because we never know what story we're going to share, especially in these times, because they're pretty terrifying as well. And we never know what story we're going to share that's going to make us braver for having told it. And we never know what story we can share that's going to make somebody else brave enough to speak up for themselves. And when all else fails, my father and I personally would just really like to encourage you to lie about a dog. Thank y'all.